Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Anime King. And as I said, yeah, expect what ifs coming from me guys. This one is going to be done by me, my voice. So here it is guys. What if Naruto left the village and became the next god of thunder guys? So sit back, relax, and I hope you guys enjoy. Don't forget to go ahead and show the supporter, the original creator, some love guys. Their link will be down in the description, so yeah, go ahead and support them. And also don't forget to stay in tune for the rest of the what ifs coming your way. Yes, I need 4 channels, more what ifs to come guys, so please your feet up, sit back and relax, and I hope you guys enjoy. So without further ado or wasting any more time, what do you say we jump right into this brand new episode? Begin now guys. When he was little, Naruto had a gift. Whenever he was upset or angry, storm clouds would form around Konoha and it would rain for an entire week. When he was 3, there was an incident with another village that resulted in 2 enemy ninjas being almost electrocuted to death because they were trying to kidnap the witness to the crime that they were committing. Thanks to his actions, a good shinobi was spared, as well as the girl that they were trying to kidnap. However, it alerted the aged Hokage that Naruto's gift needed to be contained before it got any stronger, at least until he was old enough to handle the responsibility that came with such power. And so, a second seal was placed on him, in conjunction to the one that was placed on him right after birth. When he was 8 years old, that seal almost shattered under the strain of trying to protect him. And so it was strengthened and a watcher was placed. And at the day of the academy exams, everything changed. He had failed miserably, all because they did not allow 2 out of 3 jutsus to pass. And so he jumped at the opportunity to pass, if only he could become Hokage, to get the respect that he deserved. People did not harass the old man as much as they did him. He was still carrying the forbidden scroll when he almost crashed into it. Naruto, having slammed into a tree from tripping over something in a minor crater, shook off the collision with practiced ease. He then turned to find out what the heck made him trip and slam into the tree. It was rather old enough for the forest plants to grow around it, and wrapped around it tightly. He stepped towards the object that was just there. He pulled out his kunai as he started to cut away the plants. Something was odd about this weapon. He could just feel it. There was a strange aura that surrounded it. It did not feel common. Not every shinobi could use it. He could tell just by looking at it. As the thought popped into his mind, maybe he would earn the title as a super cool shinobi if he was able to use it. The moment his hand reached out and grabbed the hilt of the weapon, he felt something strange, almost like the weapon was testing him, seeing if he was worthy enough to wield it. Which was rather silly, right? How could a weapon test someone? As he started to lift the hammer, however, the shifting of the scroll that he had reminded him that he did not have much time. So he left it there as he moved the plants back over it so that no one would see it. He would come and get it later. Time skip. His life was ruined, all because of that damn Mizuki. Sure, he got a super awesome jutsu out of it, but was it worth it though? Was it worth being banned from taking the exams and put under watch for the rest of his life? Those damn old crones ganged up against him, against the old man as well. Those damn advisors making it clear that Naruto would never be a shinobi if they had any say in it. Not after he was caught by a hidden Anvu with the scroll. even though Mizuki was captured and arrested. The fact remained that he had stolen a very important document. Despite being tricked into it, they spun it to place all the blame against him. They wanted to have him subdued, controlled. And because he had not graduated, that meant he was still under the watch of the Civilian Council, which meant they had almost complete control over his life. And he hated it. He was sick of it. He was sick of Konoha and being jerked around like some kind of puppet for their amusement. After eating his ramen, after a lot of thinking, he came to a decision. He was going to leave Konoha. He knew that other villages would be interested in a kid that could steal a S-rank forbidden scroll and take out the Hokage with one single move. It wasn't like he had anything left to lose anymore. Sure, he would miss Ayam and Toki and their delicious ramen, and Aruka to an extent because he wasn't a complete bastard and jerk like Mizuki and several other teachers. The old man had been upset and harsh with him, so he didn't have an opinion there about the person that had kept him alive for the demon that he contained. Oh yes, Mizuki was gleeful enough to tell him that, dropping that bomb on him that he was a monster, a demon, before everything happened. Naruto gathered all that he could call his own, mainly some of his plants that he had, and a few clothing that would not be classified as scraps. He finished off the food in the fridge because he was always good at foraging, unlike majority of the students within the class. He could live out in a while, so long as he avoided people. Oh yeah, and that weapon that he had tripped over, he could go for that as well. Time skip. Heimdall had felt the tremors in the star, long before Thor had went missing. He was alive, but no longer in a physical form. A fact that devastated his mother, and to some extent, Loki as well. So when he felt the song of Mjolnir once more, he could dare to hope. The first song was faint, barely able to reach Asgard. The second was much stronger though. Someone had claimed the hammer. Using his powers, he was able to find a blonde boy who had similar features to Thor. However, he was not him. A son, perhaps. He quickly sent the summons to Odin. If this was Thor's heir, they needed to be ready for him. What is it, Heimdall? What do you see? Odin asked when he arrived, as he had come as soon as he could, hoping the gatekeeper had found Thor. Sire, someone has claimed Thor's hammer. Odin felt a surge of hope. Perhaps Thor had claimed his weapon after so long. It is a child. It took him a few moments to process what he just heard, before he asked, do you believe it to be Thor's? There is some resemblance to the mortal form that he was banished in. More than enough to warrant a test to see if the blood is his legacy. Where is he? Odin asks. I shall summon him momentarily. He's too deep in territory that would draw unwanted attention to us, and might also bring mortals to Asgard. They have techniques that span the realm of time and space, Heimdall explained. It took far too long for Odin liking, but once the child was far enough away, they acted. The moments that it took for the Bifrost to bring the passenger here was almost unbearable. The entire kingdom had mourned when they heard that Thor was unreachable and possibly lost. So, watching, it felt like hours when it was just mere seconds. Odin examined the boy, who had ran for so long that he could not even stay awake. He was exhausted. He looked like a peasant at best, an orphan at worst. Bring him to Heir. We shall test the bloodline while she examined him, Odin said, as he could see that Mjolnir was rested safely in the child's pack, nestled to some plants that was well taken care of. As you wish, sire, Heimdall said. It has been far too long since they had any hope to find Thor. If not for the hammer, Heimdall would have never been able to find where he landed because he was somehow thrown so far off course. Time skip. Frigga. was quick to pounce on her husband when she heard of the child now safely in the infirmary. Is it true? Has he returned? She asks, not daring to hope. Patience, wife. Thor has not returned, but there's a possibility that he has left a child behind. A boy has claimed Thor's hammer, and Heimdall has retrieved him from one of the mortal worlds, Odin said. Frigga sagged. She wanted her son back, but the idea of a grandson to spoil and train had lifted her spirits in the slightest. His blood is being tested now to see if he's Thor's son. Even if he's not, he will be welcome as one of our family. That is when she arrived, stepping up towards the king and his wife. My lord Odin, I have tested his blood. He does bear the prince's bloodline. This child is indeed the son of Thor. However, while we were examining him, we found something strange. Prince Loki is examining the boy as we speak. Frigga didn't hesitate. This child was the last link to her firstborn, and anything that required Loki help genuinely meant magical interference. Time skip. Naruto did not open his eyes right away. Something happened, he knew, because he had fell on the cold, unforgiving ground and passed out. But now he was on one of the most comfortablest beds that he ever felt in his entire life. Plus the smell was all wrong, and the sounds as well. Some of the lessons at the academy stuck with him, as much as he hated that place and everything that had to do with it. He woke up slowly as he took stock of his surroundings. He definitely was not in Konoha anymore. He noticed his plants were safely on the table next to him, and that weird hammer that he found. However, it was on the floor and down on its side. He also saw his goggles on the table next to the plants, and his clothing was nowhere to be found. And there was also a glass of water, and that was great because he was so thirsty. It seems you're finally awake, a pleasant voice spoke up. He turned as a woman was standing there. For some reason, just looking at her, he felt like he could trust her completely. And it was not a fake feeling like he felt with the shinobis. Try as they might, he could always tell when they were putting on a show. That was because they could never put down their assassination instincts. But she, though she was... Who are you? He asked. I am Frigga, she said. And I'm your grandmother. As Naruto simply blinked and just looked at her. Meanwhile, so my nephew has finally woke up, huh? Loki asks. Yes. Aside from some malnourished which we can easily remediate, and some strange markings, there seemed to be no damage. He is unusually well developed for his age, however. Queen Frigga is with him now, likely explaining why it took so long to find him and where he is. Loki said with a snort. A minor punishment spiraled completely out of hand, and now they were finally cleaning up the last of the mess that they had left behind. The boy was Thor's heir, and he clearly needed to be trained. The moment Loki had stepped in and removed that odd magical seal on the boy's neck, storm clouds had filled the room. It had taken an hour for him to disperse them, and the child was not even trying to cause trouble. But what worried him though was the fact that he sensed a great beast lurking in the boy's mind. One that was unusually intelligent for the brief time that he had spoken with it. This Kyubi had been more than happy to fill in the blanks, like why the boy had abandoned the mortal village and why he was sleeping in the woods with a bare minimum to survive. When Frigga overheard, she was livid. Finally, Loki went into the room and found the boy talking about plants. Naruto, this is your uncle Loki. Blue eyes, like a wild sea, look into emerald green. Something about them seemed familiar, and then he recalled what the massive fox spirit had told him. This was someone who understood the very same pain that Loki had went through years ago. It had taken Thor being essentially dead for him to reconcile with his parents. Even though finding out that he was adopted had came as a nasty shock. Hi, Naruto said shyly. Right, the boy was not used to having family, much less people that genuinely care about him. Perhaps a good shock might loosen his tongue. That massive fox that you have sealed inside of you was quite vocal about his approval of you leaving. Something about red eyes, not being able to find him in another world, Loki said. As Naruto's eyes widened hearing that, he was shocked. You spoke to the Kyuubi? He asked, in utter shock. You will find that most things with that level of power of genuine intelligence are easy to converse. The trick is convincing them that it's worth their time doing so. He's not a mindless beast, said Loki. As Naruto looked pensive until he realized there was a tiny storm cloud hovering over him. He tried to swat it away until it zapped him on his hand for his trouble. His already spiky hair was now standing on end. Stupid clouds. Why do they keep on coming back? He complained, causing Loki to smirk. I found this magical seal on your neck that was used to repress your natural powers. Someone went through a lot of trouble to make sure that you were unable to control them naturally. The moment he heard that, Naruto scowled. Stupid old man, he said. I bet he had something to do with it. Ah yes, your fire shadow. I believe Mother and Odin would be delighted to speak to him. Loki said, but the way he said it, he already knew how that meeting would end. The fox was also paying a lot of attention as well. He knew that the old man had done the bare minimum of providing for him. And despite his wishes, Naruto had almost no connections to the village at all. At this point he could care less if it burned, so long as one or two people were able to escape the disaster, which mostly consists of the ramen chef and his daughter. As Naruto folded his arms, not my problem. If you want to light a fire under the old man's ass, I could provide all the blackmail material that you would need. Oh? Yeah, he's a total pervert. He has this secret safe behind the bookshelf that has all these little orange books that are written by some sage. They are full of adult-only content. If you stole them all, he will panic more than if you stole the Forbidden Scroll. Though if you did, I wouldn't recommend opening them since I booby-trapped most of them, he said, with a grin on his face. As Freyga tried to hide her smile, I think that you and your uncle are going to get along just fine. However, I better not hear that you corrupted your nephew, Freyga said. How could I ever corrupt him? Loki said with an innocent smile on his face. As Naruto snorted, you need to work on your innocent face a lot more. I barely know you and I can tell that it's completely fake. As Loki could only smile at him. I can tell. We're gonna have a lot of fun together, he said. Time skip. Word spread rather quickly about the lost son of Thor. However, very few had actually seen the boy. This was because of the seal. Naruto had practically no control over the storm clouds that popped up. Loki gave him a month before he learned to control them. It was only natural that when Lady Sif met a blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy, she was unaware of his true heritage. She had been out keeping the peace when he was found after all. Unfortunately though, it will go down into the memories of the guards that while Thor, lost son, might look like his father, his personality was like Loki. And to make matters worse, he was far more energetic. Unlike the prince that escaped capture, he was like a squirrel on coffee. Maybe 10 cups of coffee to be sure. After all, it was a pretty ordinary day when Sif had taken to the training grounds. Word had reached her about the legacy of Thor, which sounded ridiculous because the last time she had checked, Thor had no heir. Ever since he was declared dead, some child popped out of the woodwork claiming to be his heir every year or so, if not sooner. So when she found the blonde child watching her, she attempted to ignore him. However, after a few hours he got bored, so he started to talk. Normally this wouldn't be a problem, but he just kept on talking. He would not stop. Considering his hair color and that he was not chased out by the guards, she thought he was one of Fondal. He was a loudmouth as well, and he did somewhat look like him. Finally, she could not take it anymore. "Look, you little nuisance. Why don't you go and play?" she said, annoyed. Ever since Thor disappeared, they have been working hard to try and keep the peace. "I'm not allowed to leave the castle grounds until I can keep my power under control," he said. "Then go and bother someone else," Sif said to him. "I'm supposed to stay in one place until it's time for my lessons, so I picked here." "It's peaceful," he said. There was many words to describe the royal training grounds, but peaceful was not one of them. In fact, it was downright noisy with all the training going on around them. Sif's annoyance only grew even more as the afternoon dragged on. The brat would not leave her alone to train in peace. She had enough of him. "Look, just go away and leave me alone, you stupid brat. Children should not even be here, so go and run along to your mother." She completely missed the hurt look on his face. That was replaced into a blank one. If she had known anything about him, she would have been surprised to what he did next. "Suit yourself, lady, but don't come whining to my uncle when you realize that words hurt," he said, in a cryptic way. Oh, how she would hate to become on the wrong end of his devious mind. An hour later, Sif was rather irritated when Fondral did not own up to the pest that she interacted with earlier. She was about to head into her room when it happened. Something foul and smelly and sticky was dumped all over her as she tripped over a wire that she did not see quick enough. Shrieking in rage, she started to look for Loki. It took her 2 seconds as she saw the smile, that smug look on the blonde brat face, and she started to chase him. She did not care who Charlie was. He was going to get what he deserved. "Get back here, you brat!" she yelled out. "Catch me if you can, old hag," he yelled at her. She hated to admit it, but he was quick and more slippery than an eel. Every time that she thought she had him, he used the surroundings to jump around like a monkey and evade her grasp. As fit as she wasn't adept at making ear turns in a sudden, the way he can bend and twist like that. And the one time she threw a knife towards him to try and panic him to throw his speed off course, he flipped over and caught it and threw it right back at her. It was a sloppy throw, but the fact that his aim almost hit her was rather surprising, and that caught her off guard. And then she realized that he escaped. She searched for another half hour before she cut her losses. With Naruto, as he was grinning, as he was currently in the custody of his uncle, Loki had come looking for him because he was 5 minutes late to his magic training. When he had overheard the commotion, "May I ask what Lady Sif did to earn a bucket fill of some rather foul-smelling oil and slime?" Loki asked. "She called me a stupid brat, and she wasn't very nice." It did not take him long to put 2 and 2 together. Lady Sif has obviously returned and had run into his nephew, where Naruto liked to watch the guards train. Her foul mood had caused, Naruto to prank her, as he knew that she would be short with him because of Naruto's overall attitude. And surprisingly enough, Naruto escaped her, an expert who was able to hunt down experienced warriors. And Frigga had worried about him corrupting Naruto. The only thing that he would do was give the boy some better advice how to incorporate certain style into his pranks. "You know, you got that evil look on your face again. Imagining how much trouble I could cause if I used magic rather than simple traps," Naruto said, as a grin also formed on his face as well. It takes a prankster to understand a fellow agent of chaos, and mother thought I would be the one to corrupt you. Pranks are the best way to make people notice you, if only to beat you into a bloody pulp, Naruto said in a sage tone. Don't think I did not notice that sloppy throw. If you're going to train how to use knife, you're gonna have to be able to hit the broadside of a frost giant, Loki said. As Naruto perked up at the idea, making Loki smile. It was nice having a minion, apprentice to train. Especially one with a similar mind to his. Let's begin, Loki said. Time skip. Naruto fidgeted where he was, mostly because he was not used to having clothes that actually fit. Yes, they were the right size. Thankfully, the guy that was in charge of the measurements had put some orange in it. Something about him being more for summer than spring weather. He didn't understand what that meant. He was born in the fall, as far as he knew. I would tell you to sit still, but I know it's pointless. Instead, try to contain your boredom until it is time to eat. No one expects you to know all the formal table manners right away. So do your best to keep your mouth shut while you chew, and never talk when you have food in your mouth, Loki said. I know, said Naruto. Ayam Nichan made sure to correct my eating habits one year, when she found out that the orphanage did not bother to do so. Loki made a note for those that seemed to genuinely care about the boy. So far the list just contained the chef and the daughter. It also became very apparent that the boy had no idea how to use a fork or a knife. However, he was very adept at using those two sticks that he brought with him. Loki had taken a trip to Midgard. He learned that they were called chopsticks. They were very common in the Asian country as utensils, mostly used for eating rice. It has also taken little effort to know that Naruto's favorite food was from a small island called Japan. He wondered how quickly a new food type would catch on if they so happened to bring the Ayam and Tuki to Asgard for long enough for them to set up shop. Despite being a trade center, most food had been around for a very long time, and a new style would probably go over very well. Particularly if word got around that Naruto has been visiting the place rather frequently. He made a point to pick up more of these chopsticks so that Naruto could eat with just more than his hands. Considering that the nation was just sort of recovering from an explosive device that had hit two different cities, no one had questioned why he was there. From the looks of it, from what Loki saw, the mortals had just ended the war a few years ago, so no one questioned him being there. Loki glanced as he saw Sif, as she spotted Naruto at the table in a place of honor. It was clear what she was thinking at the moment, and he couldn't wait to see the look on her face when Odin announced what he was going to announce. This will be Naruto's official debut amongst the Asgard elite, which will trickle down back towards their allies and spread throughout the 9 realms. As he was not even considered an adult, and he was in a backwater world that had not even visited space, no one would question that he was staying near Asgard until they brought him up to speed. Odin stood as everyone was silent, many of them curious of the blonde child that stood between Loki and Frigga. That is where Thor used to sit, and he also looked like him. Everyone, many years ago, I was forced to banish my own son from Asgard. For his own arrogance, all the 9 realms mourned his loss when he was declared effectively dead. However, Heimdall came to me with joyous news that Thor's hammer had been found. More importantly, it was claimed by a small child who fit the right age when my son was killed. May I present to you Thor's legacy, his son, Naruto. Everyone was silent, and for a moment Naruto worried that he would not be accepted. Then the roar of approval and joy was heard, nearly making him flinch. To be fair, he had no idea how popular his father was before he had vanished. Everyone loved Thor, so finding out that he had a son before his death meant that they loved Naruto by extension. It was a strange feeling. However, the best part was seeing the look on Lady Sif's face. Her mouth was wide open in disbelief and shock. As the time went on, there was music. There was plenty of food. He got into an eating competition with Volstagg and won, to the amusement of Loki. And he was more popular than Fondral was for the entire night. Fortunately, no one expected him to be a prodigy. However, they watched with approval as he reigned in the storm clouds whenever they came out. Apparently Thor had similar issues when he was a child, but he learned how to control them over the years. And when they found out about his age, they were not surprised by his control. Loki brought him to the room where he was out cold, before he had even touched the bed. It was a night of pure celebration. Frigga watched the entire thing, with a happy smile of approval. It was clear that Naruto was very good for Loki, who normally hung to the side, especially around Lady Sif and the Warrior 3. Naruto had gravitated to Loki without even noticing that. It had forced Loki into the limelight because Naruto had unconsciously sought his approval the entire night. He had accepted Frigga as his grandmother, and Odin's status as the king, though it was clear that he put Odin on the same level as a shadow, with a lot of paperwork to do. However, the one that he looked up to was obviously Loki. "You would make a good father for the boy. I'm sure that Thor would approve," Frigga said. Loki blinked, as if such a thought did not even occur to him, as Naruto has only been here for the past 4 days. "I'm not sure the others would agree," he said. "Come now, Loki. Surely that you notice that out of all of us, you are the one that he has constantly gone to for advice and support. He trusts me to a point, but whenever he needed help, you were the first person that he sought it out. I assume that you're also responsible for the prank on Lady Sif earlier." Word had already spread about Lady Sif being covered in some foul concoction. She had to walk all the way to her room to get herself cleaned up. Everyone assumed that Loki was the one behind it. Loki snorted in amusement. That was all Naruto doing. I had no idea that he pranked Lady Sif, until I caught him because he was late for his lessons. Frigga brought a hand up to her mouth to hide her amusement. She had heard the full story from a guard earlier about how Sif had been short with a blonde brat, who she assumed was one of Fondral's, only for the boy to prank her and lead her through a merry chase throughout the palace. Finding out that the boy that caused her that much problem was Thor heir had came as a nasty shock for her. It was another sign that Naruto would rather enjoy being Loki's adoptive son. So with that, it only took about 3 hours for word to spread that Thor had an heir. Enemies of Asgard start to make plans of how to dispose of the child, while their allies celebrated, knowing that at least Thor had left behind an heir to the throne. Meanwhile, on a certain planet, an old man was now reaping the seed that he had sown, as he was currently worrying about the blonde child that had gone missing without a trace. Only thing that was left was a strange seal that not even Jiraiya could figure out. And Naruto was gone. He was nowhere to be seen. Time skip. 6 months later. "Come on, Naruto. Put some more effort into it," said Loki, as 8 knives sailed through the air as they slammed right into the target. If not all but most ended up in the center. His aim had improved dramatically, and it helped a lot that they had forged some kunai for him to use, and they were indeed sharp enough to do some real damage. Naruto has not regretted picking up the hammer or leaving the village, not even once. It had been the best decision of his life, and he was enjoying every moment of it. So was the fox inside of his body. It had taken him 3 months for Kurama to finally reveal his name, and another month for Loki to find a makeshift body so he can roam around. It wasn't very big, probably the same size as a horse, but it was an improvement over the prison that he has been stuck in for over half a century. It was because Loki gave Kurama a small portion of his freedom back, with the idea that he would not cause Naruto any trouble. The fox let something slip that he saw in the past that gave Odin and Frigga some hope. Thor was not as dead as they were led to believe. As punishment for involving a local god to seal Kurama inside of his son, Thor and his wife, Soul had been sealed away as well. It was likely that the Shinigami had recognized what, or more accurately, who Thor was, and decided to put another lesson on top of the one that Odin had already placed. As such, Naruto wasn't only carrying around a massive fox in his guts, but the souls of his parents as well. Odin had gone to hell, the realm of where the dead, and he had asked how to free Thor and his wife. However, the results were not very promising. The only way to free Thor and Kushina Uzumaki was using 2. 3 would be better though, Infinity Stones. Those stones were the soul, mind, and reality stones. It was dangerous enough to have 2 of those together, never mind 3, and they have all been lost or deliberately been sealed away. So Frigga and Loki discreetly start to look for them, while catching Naruto up on the training that he should have had years ago. Loki had discovered a rather unique aspect of the Shadow Clone Jutsu, which would be a big boost in his training and his growth. However, despite all of that, Naruto was a young boy that learned extremely fast. This Konoha had no idea what they lost. Also, there was another big change. Until they were able to free the souls of his parents, Loki would be the father figure in Naruto's life. Naruto was beyond ecstatic to hear that, and he had started to copy Loki to an extent as well. Though that didn't mean that he lost his orange completely. He always had a piece of orange on him, but it now was in a tasteful form, not bright and always out. And he was still the same prankster that he's always been, much to the annoyance of some people like Amara and her thug, as they were his usual targets that he liked to hit. And given his speed, it was hard to even catch him. Things were different now though. People were putting in the time to train him, and with the training, Naruto was growing in leaps and bounds. Loki had also learned that teaching Naruto small stuff in magic would not work. He will have to go for the bigger things because of his reserves. So he started with the big stuff. Things like involving weather or the use in the wind in some sort of way. It was doing wonders as he was able to dial it down, making Naruto learn great control. As Naruto at the moment glanced up towards his father figure, who smiled down towards him. "Well done," he said. "Keep this up and I might take you out to the bazaar to pick up a few more books to read." As Naruto perked up hearing that. Usually he hated the idea of reading, but Loki sat down with him and teach him the essentials, the things that he need to know. And now, well, he was soaking everything up like a sponge. Kurama woke up when the training was over. He was considered as Prince Naruto's pet at this point, but he did not really care, as long as no one made a big deal about it. He walked alongside Naruto, acting as a guard for him. Despite Loki's best efforts, Kurama was only restricted to about half a mile away from Naruto before the seal drew him back. Time skip. Naruto came across something that sparked his interest. Well, something that made his mouth water. "No way," he said. Loki smiled as Naruto teleported away from him. It was just speed, but he was so excited as he moved towards a decent-sized restaurant that had opened up a few days ago. As he heard Naruto scream out in joy, the effort of relocating a father and daughter to a different location had worked out. The village of Konoha seemed to lose some of its appeal when Naruto went missing, and very little was being done to find him. Hearing the circumstances of why he went away, and that some of the villagers were far too happy to know that he was gone, Loki was able to swoop in and convince Toki that relocating to a larger area where he might have a larger, consistent flow of customers would be a great idea. Finding out that the rent would be part of the payment had made the building location more enticing. It was only after he had packed up and got ready that he dropped the bomb that Naruto was there. Loki arrived as he stood there to see Naruto chatting up with his 2 favorite people from his home. Any chance of him ever returning to Konoha now was completely banished from his thoughts. "Hey old man, come meet my new dad," Naruto shouted loudly. It took Toki 3 seconds to recognize Loki. Once Naruto was distracted by the food, he went to speak with him. "You brought us here deliberately to make sure that he does not go back, didn't you?" That, and because you two were the only 2 people that he spoke about that seemed to consider his well-being. The fact that you have done your best to take care and protect him, despite the circumstances, show that you are more than enough deserving of a new client base. And once word spread that he visit this restaurant quite regularly, you will have no end of customers to choose from. Though if you have someone by the name of Volstagg come in, make sure that he pays up front, if whenever possible. That man is like a Akamichi. Wasn't too hard to guess that he might dine and dash, Toki said as he patted a sack of gold. Now that they were on the same page, Loki tried to emulate his son using the chopsticks. It took some step to get him to learn them, seeing that Naruto was more in-depth at using them and Loki was used to the knife and fork. Finding out that this place was visited by the prince on so many occasions was a big boost for them. Sure, being paid in coins was a bit strange, the currency was new here. However, here he did not have to pay an insurance in case of a shinobi enemy attack or worry that his daughter might be captured during an invasion. Things were better here. Time skip. Loki groaned, trying to find 3 of the 6 Infinity Stones were giving him a headache. As he saw Naruto walk into the massive library, he decided to take a break. What are you and grandmother working so hard on? We're trying to find certain stones to free your mother and father from that seal, without killing them in the process. Naruto tilted his head in confusion. Wait, aren't the stones like really well hidden, so hints of where they're located would be difficult to find? Yes, Loki said. Then why don't we just find the one that governed over time, and switch the others with a couple of fakes? I mean, if there's a different seal to hold back Rama, then they would not be trapped in it, right? And we can catch them up on what happened. Loki looked at Naruto for a long minute, as he proceeded to blink. I'm becoming too much like Thor. Why didn't I think of that? It was simple. Replace the seal that they use with something that would not summon the dead god. Then grab Thor and his wife and bring them back to Asgard and catch them up. Sure, they would be displaced by time, but that was trivial compared to having 3 stones together. Besides, he already knew a hint of where the time stone might be, but he dismissed it because they did not need that one. The only trick now was finding a seal that they could place on Naruto without disrupting the timeline too much. It looked like you'll be making a trip to that blasted planet once more to pick up books on sealing. When I get back next week, you're gonna help me find a seal that won't restrict your friend too much, but be able to hold him back as we start to funnel with it. Loki told Naruto. Time skip. Loki used the old path and came back in 2 weeks instead of 1. He had to dodge those pathetic shinobis half the time, which is the reason why it took so long, especially that annoying old man that was messing around with toads, and then there was another that seemed to be obsessed with snakes. Considering how much this Orochimaru annoyed him, he took some of his personal research as revenge. He also took a massive scroll that gave off the same description of what a summoning contract looked like that Kurama told him about, as he promptly arrived and dumped most of the books in Naruto's room. I want to see some decent amount of progress in a short amount of time, since I still have some trouble with this chicken scratch that you call words. Naruto glanced up from what he had in his hand and looked towards what his father had basically dumped on top of him. I've never been good at reading it either, said Naruto. Hell, he was better at reading the books here than the ones that were written in kanji. And if I got you a tutor in these shinobi arts, Loki asked, well, I might be able to figure it out eventually. We'll make a trip to this one place that I found had rather several strong shinobis, and it will teach that man running the place not to mess with me a second time. As Naruto smirked up towards him, you want me to give him a Naruto special? Absolutely, Loki said, with a smirk on his face. It had become well known that Naruto was as terrifying to piss off as his father. While his pranks were most time childish, they can be done in a very creative way that will make you think twice to piss him off, as he always put his pranks in certain places and did certain things that would cause you tremendous embarrassment or sometimes worse, and you would not know where they were. That is the reason why Amara and her thugs were staying away from Asgard while Naruto was there, as she had protection set up for someone flying through her window, magic barriers, but Naruto simply climbed through it. Yes, and strutted right in. He wasn't using magic for his traps after all. It was just all him. As Naruto wondered though, which village is it? It's called the Sound, Loki said. Time skip. 2 months later. It's been a very long while since. As Naruto drew in a breath, taking in the air of the elemental countries. Asgard had been more of a home than this place ever was, and it was never his fault. It was the shinobis and the civilians that took out their misguided hate on him because of what happened, despite him suffering as much as them as well. Because he was innocent. There was a lot of innocent people that did not deserve their fate. Naruto glanced up. Say, Dad, would it be possible for us to find people like me and rescue them from their unforgiving fate? Naruto asked. I sincerely doubt that there are other heirs to the throne here, Loki said. No, not like that. I was referring to people that also hold tail beasts. I'm sure they would want to get away from the constant fighting and arguing over the past because of what they held. We can look into it later, preferably once Thor ascended the throne, like he should have years ago. Oh yeah, right. Gotta find someone to teach me how to read kanji properly and how to use chakra more efficiently. With your disguise firmly in place and Kurama chakra signature effectively hidden, they wonder. As Loki had saw the girl that he had noticed earlier, she had a fiery temper, her control was efficient, and she was often seen reading those books. Time skip. Sometime later in the hidden grass, Karin thought that she was being paranoid at first. Who would want to follow a nobody like her? She was just a genin with a proficiency in healing jutsu. There was much more people to follow and kidnap, right? But she kept on seeing people following her. Finally, she could not take it anymore, and she was ended up cornered by a blonde kid and a man with green eyes. It was several times now that their illusion had shifted, turned into different people, but she was sure that they were the ones following her. She had a kunai in one hand as she prepared herself. Who are you? She demanded, looking at them. We came to offer you a job, on a way out of a village that used you as cannon fodder, and doesn't seem to care for their soldiers. Karin blinked. Okay, that was not what she was expecting at all. What? She said befuddled. I suck at kanji, and my chakra control is shot as hell, because it's way too big. It's easier to kidnap someone who read the more difficult books, and has a decent control than to grab a jonin. In exchange, you get free room, food, and the ability to go wherever you want, within reason. Why not simply hire me then, she asks. Loki snorted because I know that you're working with that snake, obsessed fool. And this is a way you can't use anything against us that you learn. As Karin stiffened at that, how did he? And the fact that we will also pay you handsomely for your help, said Naruto. As he held up a coin, Karin stared at them incredulously. Just let me get this straight. For helping you read some kanji and work on your control, I get free room, board, and I get paid in actual gold. And I will be allowed to travel wherever I want in reason. Exactly, said Naruto. Well, there's only one thing left to say. Who are you people and where do I sign up, she asks. Well, my name is Uzumaki Naruto and this is my dad, Loki. Karin blinked. Uzumaki? As in, the Uzumaki clan? From what I was able to ascertain, his mother was supposed to be the next clan head. However, the clan was scattered. Karin blinked in shock, as she just stared at Naruto. Your mother was Aunt Kushina? Why didn't you say so in the first place? I didn't think it mattered, said Naruto. She pinched the bridge of her nose. If you had said that we were family, then you could have just gone to the main office and said that you were reclaiming me for the clan. You wouldn't have any need to hire me, she said. Time skip. Karin had all the things that she sealed away in a scroll, including the books that she borrowed from Orochimaru, as she glanced towards the village of the grass. Before she headed off, she never liked that place in the first place. When she first came to Asgard, she fainted, in utter shock, giving Naruto a lot of blackmail material and a lot of things to laugh about. Time skip. Report. Well, I confirm that he's alive. And he's apparently traveling with a man with piercing green eyes and a regal attitude. From the looks of it, this man seemed to be from some noble family. And he has taken Naruto in, Jiraiya said, looking towards Harrison Saratobi. Harrison leaned back in his chair. Naruto was alive. Those 3 words lift a great deal off his shoulder. Any idea who exactly has him? The only thing that we have to go on is a name and a basic description. Whoever he is, he's very good at illusions. He goes by the name Loki. Why the grass, Harrison said. From what I was able to get out of my contact, he went to their main office to file a claim on one of their genins. Here's the file. Harrison looked it over. Karin Uzumaki? He filed it as the heir of the Uzumaki clan. And once they confirmed that he was Kushina's son, they hand her over without a fuss. One genin is not going to make much of a difference, and from what I got, they also assumed that he was with us, and they wouldn't want to start any problem for something that they did not have any control over in the first place. Saratobi grimaced. It wasn't even public knowledge or even rumored, but the loss of their Jinjulki was a big blow. Danzo has been sending out his troops, trying to find and capture Naruto, if only to reseal the beast into one of his pawns. The fact that he has been unable to find a single hint of Naruto meant that he was well hidden until now. Keep an eye out for Naruto. If you find him, I want you to do your best to make him your new apprentice. After that mess with Mizuki, there is no way that you'll be allowed to meet Jenny normally. Any other academic student, and it would have met with a suspicion of them for years and a lower risk of them making Chunin, much less Jonin. But this was Naruto, who was almost universally hated within his own village. The council had it out for him for what he represented and held, and this was one of the worst screw-up in his career. And because of what he was, he would never be able to be anything else but a shinobi. Forcing Jiraiya to make him his apprentice was the only way he'll be able to help the child that he considered as his grandson. It was days like this that made him wish Minato never died, defeating the fox. Meanwhile, Asgard. You get back here with my glasses, Naruto! Karin shouted. She had become a familiar sight within the palace, and having her around became a relief to the guards, having helped to curb Naruto's pranking streak. Some, but not all. She usually gets pissed off pretty quickly. Karin was now considered a permanent addition to the palace. She wasn't exactly inclined to leave after being rescued by her cousin. Apparently, it was very common in the elemental country for extended family to stay close to one another, and the Uzumakis were amongst the tightest of families. At this point, she became like a red-headed sister of his, and she didn't mind living in the palace. Despite being bigger than most houses she has ever been in, she kinda felt overwhelmed at being in such a grand place. With her help, Naruto was able to understand the kanjis even more on sealing, and also his chakra control was getting better. Frigga was rather surprised as Naruto walked on top of water. At the moment, Naruto was running away from Karin with her glasses, so she got pretty creative, as Naruto came to a stop when he saw a bowl of ramen on the table, only for Karin to slam right into him as she tackled him down to the ground, reclaiming her glasses. Damn it, I got tricked again, said Naruto. Well, that's your fault that you're addicted to ramen, she said to him. They heard a cough as they glanced up to see Loki. Dad, Loki-sensei. The both of them spoke. Karin's ability to illusion also extended to magic, and as a part of the agreement that they made, he started to help her to refine that ability. So she started to call him Sensei. Dare I ask what he did now, Loki asked. He stole my glasses, Karin said. You're almost late for your lessons. As Karin blinked in shock, as Loki was talking to her, she quickly raced off to meet up with a healer. Her talents for healing meant that she gravitated towards Lady Heir. While she could not teach her how to use healing chakra, she could teach her how to use healing magic, as Loki admitted that he was not that good at using that. Heir was happy to have such an excited student about the art. However, she did not tolerate lateness. That is why Karin was currently running as fast as she could. As for you, said Loki, it's time that you get to read no scrolls. As Naruto nodded, I almost got the second tier seals figured out. Karin said that the Uzumakis were known to have a knack for sealing arts. As Naruto grinned up towards Loki, by using the Shadow Clone, Naruto used the clone to read over 100 books. As he started to focus and calm his mind, whenever he did, things came a lot easier to him. Loki shook his head as he watched Naruto run off, making his way. Things are coming together now. They just need a bit more time. As he watched Naruto headed off, back to where the books were, he simply made his way off. He had his own little research to focus on. He was close to getting the time stone. But guys, be in subscribe right here. If once things person do, like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notification to stay posted. Without further ado, wasting more time, what do you say we jump right into this? Begin now, guys.